What's up, guys? Hi, and welcome to Uncle Scott's Kitchen. Got a fun video today. One of my favorite things to do. We're going to talk about debouillé, carbon steel. I got this guy in a couple of months ago, been cooking in it. This is a debouillé mineral B element carbon steel skillet, 9.5-inch model, made in France. And I'm going to show you how I got it cleaned and seasoned. We're going to do a little cooking in it, show you how it performs. Going to talk about sous vide just a little bit. Not a big fan of sous vide, and I'll show you why, because we're going to do a really high temp sear test in this guy. And we'll also kind of compare and contrast it a little bit to this guy, which if you've been around the channel for a couple of years, you know that this is my favorite pan in the whole world. This is also a debouillé mineral B element, 9.5-inch carbon steel frying pan. But this is the omelet pan version. So we'll kind of compare and contrast just a little bit and go through the multiple pan strategy that I like to advocate for. So let's jump in and get started. All right, the vitals on this guy. Weighs in at a little over 3 pounds. You immediately notice that the handle is a coated strip steel handle with a small plasticky medallion in it. And like the great Bon Scott from AC/DC once saying, it's love at first feel, at least for me. He may have been using that in a different context. The handle is riveted, 3 rivets in the handle. Okay, this is a 2.5 millimeter thick pan. For a 9.5-inch frying pan, when you pick it up, it's definitely got some sturdiness and some heft to it. I really do like that. As far as cost, this guy is listed at $70 on the debouillé website. For reference purposes, the omelet pan, same size, is at $75. These pans are compatible with gas, electric, and induction. As we've mentioned though, if you have electric or induction, you might want to season your pan using your oven. You shouldn't do that with this coated handle. You could upgrade to the Mineral B Professional model, same size pan, just with the cast stainless steel handle. That's about $95. So you might notice this pan looks like it's been seasoned and cooked in for a couple of months. That's because it's been seasoned and cooked in for a couple of months. So if you want to know how long I've been cooking in this pan, when I started the review, I had a bigger belly and a beard. Now I have longer hair, no beard, and I'm down 36 pounds. So I started the review 36 pounds ago. In the meantime, I actually loaned this pan to a friend. Believe it or not, I talk about carbon steel skillets in YouTube videos. In social situations, I also talk about carbon steel skillets, and a person had never tried one. I gave it to her, and she tried it for a couple weeks. I said, unfortunately, I have to ask for it back because I'm right in the middle of a pan review. But she gave it back, said she loved it, and she ordered one for herself. So that's a pretty good endorsement right there. Let's talk about pan size just a little bit. This is the 9.5-inch model. What I want to show is the 9.5 sitting inside a 12.5. A stark difference in size there. This turns out to be a great size pan because sometimes it'll be 4:30 in the afternoon. I go up to my wife and say, honey, what would you like for dinner? And she says something like, I just had a yogurt. And then I know I am on my own for supper. And this is a great size for cooking 1 or 2 servings of proteins. I usually eat 2 servings myself. Okay, to season this guy, we've shown seasoning in several other videos, so I won't go through it in too much depth here, but at a high level, gave the pan a good wash, got most, but not all the beeswax off. Used a sponge and dish soap, and I made sure to dry it really quickly after washing it so I didn't get any rust. Can still see a little beeswax on the pan, and that's okay. Go into the stovetop here, and what we're gonna do is bring some oil up to its smoking point, pour it out, and then wipe the pan until it looks dry with a big wad of paper towels. And how many paper towels do we need? Enough to rival the environmental impact of a John Kerry flight to Davos. And as I always say, season once and just start cooking. The pan is not dark, it's not shiny, it's not jet black, but the pan is seasoned correctly, and now we can just start cooking. Let's do the proverbial fried egg test and get that out of the way up front here. Got the pan heating up, in goes some butter. Add my egg. And boom. Nailed it, first try, first fried egg in this pan, sliding like the proverbial hockey puck, and nailed the flip. In an act of pure insanity, let's try a French omelet for the second thing I've cooked in this pan. Again, I got the pan heated up, got some butter in there, in goes my eggs. Stir, 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 shake and stir. Fold those up, and here they stuck just a little bit in the center. Is there anything wrong with the seasoning? Anything wrong with the pan? No, the fault is mine. I just needed to let that pan heat another 20 seconds or so and slide it off center a little bit on my gas burner, because as crazy as it sounds, if you put a pan directly over a gas burner, there is a slightly cooler area right in the middle of that circular flame. And I just needed to heat that middle just a little bit more, make sure it was a little bit more evenly heated. But this is a good reminder that when you've got a new pan and you're learning how it cooks, you got to find the right burner, the right preheating time, and you may stick an egg or two up front, but after you cook 5 or 6 or so, you'll know exactly how long to preheat the pan, which eye to use, and you get a lot better performance. Now here I want to bring up the differences between this Mineral B omelet pan and the regular pan, and kind of talk about the multiple pan strategy just a little bit. The omelet pan, very similar, also the 9.5, almost exactly the same pan, except for the omelet pan has curved edges, much rounder, whereas the regular, and I hope this comes across on the camera, the sides of the pan where it meets the cooking surface, a much more definite angle there. And the differences here are that the omelet pan, it's a little easier to slide eggs, and especially turn an omelet or slide an egg out of the pan and onto a plate or piece of toast for that matter. And you notice that the seasoning on this pan is very dark, black and shiny. This one still looks a little ratty, even though I've been using this for 3 or 4 months now. So what I like to do is have a multiple pan strategy. So if you can swing 2 pans, keep one absolutely pristine for your nonstick eggs and keep another for everything else. Let's jump in and do a little bit more cooking here. Here I have a close to 1 pound well-marbled ribeye. I've got some salt, some pepper, some rosemary, some butter, and a little bit of peanut oil. Been using peanut oil on my steaks lately because I think it does better with some of the higher temperatures. Got the pan heated up. In goes some oil, in goes that steak. And is there a better sound in the world of cooking? I don't think so. Give that a couple minutes per side, put some butter and some rosemary in there, and then I finish this guy in the oven. Now, even though this pan has a coated strip steel handle, it can go in the oven for 10 minutes or so, and which is plenty of time for bringing that steak up. We like ours to come out of the oven at an internal temperature of about 126, 127 degrees. Then it'll rest for a while and it'll come up into the low 130s in between there, and that's the way we like ours. Everybody's different. And I think the pan did a fine job with this ribeye steak. Let's take a look here at some fish. I like to eat fish a couple times a week. This is a good size for a couple of standard servings of salmon, 6 ounces or so. And here I just used oil, lemon, salt, and pepper, and got a little crust on there. And I really do like salmon like this, especially with a little bit of broccoli. Nice healthy meal. Great size there, and the Debouillet did a fantastic job putting a crust on that salmon. Weeknight pork chops. This Debouillet will hold 2 thicker boneless pork chops, or perhaps 3 scrawnies. I floured these guys and fried them up the other night. Also made some gravy. What I want to do here is illustrate once again the difference between that egg pan where I keep the seasoning absolutely perfect and a working jack of all trades pan like this. The seasoning changes every time I cook in it. Frying up those pork chops, there's just a little bit of sticky residue in the bottom. Then I used a metal whisk on the pan, making the gravy. I washed it out, had to use the scrubby side of a dish sponge, and this is what the seasoning looks like in my working pan. Still not 100% perfect. It comes and goes, it changes every time I cook in it, but I think it's absolutely beautiful. Now for the grand finale cooking test, I want to do a really high temp sear of another steak, show you how this carbon steel can really handle the heat, and also talk a little bit about sous vide and why I don't particularly care for it. I've been in a little bit of a Twitter spat over on Twitter, obviously, with some people over the benefits or lack thereof of sous vide. And I am not a huge proponent of it. As a matter of fact, I've never tried it. It does not interest me in the slightest. And why is that? After all, I review a ton of cookware around here. Why is sous vide one of the only gadgets I have no interest in whatsoever? Let's take this beautiful, well-marbled New York strip, for example. About a pound here, prime beef, right at $30 or so for this one steak. I just mentally cannot take this beautiful piece of meat and stick that in a plastic bag and soak it in water on my countertop for several hours. I just cannot get my head around doing that. I'm sure it's a boon for the restaurant industry, and it's great for being able to keep steaks at one temperature and sear them quickly and get people's meals out to a table in a reasonable amount of time. But for the home cook, for me, for cooking a steak, no interest whatsoever. And let me show you why. This carbon steel, got it heating up here. Same procedure as the other steak, but I've got it heating up here, and what I want to show is that I have got this pan over 550 degrees. 550 degrees on a home cooktop. That is absolutely screaming hot. You cannot do this in a chemical coated nonstick skillet. It would off-gas, terrible gases. Don't try it with other skillets. But cast iron and carbon steel like this Debouillé can handle this level of heat. Get my steak in there. And when you cook at a high temperature like this, Dingo's meat is going to splatter a little bit. There's some steam and grease rising from the pan. There's an open gas flame there, and it flames up just a little bit. So you got to be very careful cooking at temperatures like this, but the carbon steel can handle that high heat. 2 minutes or so per side, get the edges a little bit. I like butter and rosemary on mine as well. Then I take this pan to a 400 degree oven and I let it go for another 4 minutes or so. So back to comparing this versus the sous vide. Start to finish, my steak was done perfectly the way I like it in about 9 minutes. Didn't have to put it in a bag, in a vat of water for hours on my countertop. Just have no interest in that. Steak, Caesar salad, and glass of red wine. Perhaps my favorite meal in the entire world. Absolutely delicious. I think the Debouillé did a fantastic job, not only with this steak, but with everything else I've cooked in it. I'm not gonna use it as my dedicated egg pan. I have a different pan for that. But for single servings of protein, fish, pork chops, steaks, did an absolutely fantastic job. I give this Debouillé Mineral B Element a thumbs up. And I also give Uncle Scott's Kitchen a thumbs up. If you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful and entertaining, make sure you like and subscribe to see more just like it. If you decide you're going to get one of these pans, a very nice thing to do, since I buy all this stuff with my own money, I don't take any free stuff, is to go through those affiliate shopping links below. Always appreciated. Thank you for watching. Make sure you leave your questions, comments, and feedback below. We'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Kitchen.